You know their best-selling albums, sold-out concerts, and iconic music videos. Now, find out the stories behind the songs, behind the stars, and behind the drama with Behind the Music, a new podcast from MTV and iHeartRadio, featuring the stories behind some of the biggest names in music, like 50 Cent, Madonna, AC/DC, and many more. Ready to find out what really happened? Go beyond the headlines and get the story behind the music. Listen to Behind the Music on July 29th on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Drugs. Almost everyone uses them, and everyone has an opinion about them. I'm Ethan Nadelman, host of the new podcast, Psychoactive. I'll be talking with scientists and politicians, celebrities and activists about all things drugs.
You know, I think ecstasy saved my marriage.
Why do we have receptors in our brain that fit molecules made by poppy plants?
Psychoactive is out now. Listen to Psychoactive on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I sure will. Good morning, everybody. You are listening to The Voice. Come on, dig me now. One and only Steve Harvey got a radio show. Man, oh man. Almost forgot I had one this morning, but I'm okay. I'll tell you where I am in a little bit. You know, I get around, man. There's so much, but man, good morning, everybody. You know, today I was having a conversation with my wife last night, and we were talking about our plans. You know, we often sit down, you know, just like a married couple. I mean, you know, we're married. You know, we have children. We have aspirations. We have hopes. We have things we want. You know, when you're married, you know, I mean, it's important to sit with your partner. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's common sense, really. It's important to sit down with the person that you've chosen and decided to share your life with and have multiple conversations on a lot of things. And we try to make sure that all of our conversations aren't always just business related and always kid related, you know, because that becomes, it's a part of it, but it weighs so much on the marriage because that's the grunt work of being married. You know, your children, your family, your bills, your mortgage, your car notes, you know, what's due, what's coming up. And if you're not careful, you'll start, that becomes the focal point of you all's conversation. And this woman or man or person that you've decided to have this life with, all of a sudden, they're an extension of your business. And you guys become business partners or whatever. And it just gets so, anyway, I'm just saying that it's important to sit down and have these conversations. But it's even more important to have the other conversations. You know, it's important with the person that you're planning on making the run with to sit down and talk about other things, you know, on a more upbeat note. You know, we were having a conversation and she was reminding me of what she loved about me. And then I, in turn, was turning around telling her the things that I admired about her and loved about her. And we kind of have these all the time, you know, where we sit down and we talk about the things that we still enjoy about one another. Or we may talk about some of the things that we miss in one another. But we constantly have these conversations about appreciation. You know, it's so important, man, that the other person feels appreciated. So these things are important. But we got into the conversation deeper last night, and I was telling her about this idea that I had and that I wanted her to help me with and make a phone call for me because she knows these people, and I was going to be doing this. And then my wife reminded me of something. Now, once again, you know, as always, you know, when I'm talking to you, I just keep it as real as I can. I don't know the Bible inside out. I can't quote to you scriptures and tell you exactly where it is. I just, you know, I heard her say it, but it kind of blew by me. I was telling her about something I wanted to make happen, and she reminded me that there's a scripture somewhere, and somebody emailed it to me today, I'm sure, where the Bible reminds us not to be anxious for anything. Don't be anxious for something. And, you know, it really mattered to me at that point yesterday that she brought this to my attention, because how many times I've been guilty of that in my past, and I've learned better now, but every now and then I need to be reminded, you know, and I think what she was saying to me was, I've gotten to a point in my life, and we all should get to a point where, you've heard old people say this: if you're gonna pray about something, then don't worry about it, and if you're gonna worry about it, don't pray about it. Back to this: be anxious for nothing. If you're going to trust in God, then do that. And trusting in Him means sometimes you got to be patient. God has never been too late. You don't know the plan He has. You don't really always know His will. You definitely don't know His route, His way of doing anything. So He's always on time. He's always been there on time for me. He's always been there on time for you. How many times have you thought it was over only to find out it's really just begun? How many times have people wrote you off? There are those of you who have lost jobs, but you are still maintaining. But man, God has already began the turnaround process for many of us. Some of us lost jobs and now have better jobs. Some of us lost jobs and now has forced us to rekindle that dream and that vision for a business we had. And sometimes the mishap is the thing you need to make something good happen. See, a lot of times we get so comfortable in our life where we just we get complacent. We just settle in, and when this is it and this is what I'm doing. But in actuality, God has a tremendous amount of abundance for you. He has an amazing amount of things. He has all these boxes packaged up with your name on them that He's willing to ship if you would just align yourself with some of His will so you could get some of these things. How many times have you thought it was over and it didn't really go over? How many times have you thought, this is it, and it wasn't it at all? Well, how many times have you thought, well, it don't look like this gonna work out, and it didn't work out, but then something better came along? How many times has that happened? You've got to realize this, man. I was talking to a family who had got displaced from the Katrina thing that happened down there in New Orleans. And man, when they said, yeah, we got displaced from Katrina, and I braced myself because, oh, woe is me. Here comes this story. I got to hear this, and I got to be encouraged and think of something. It was totally different. They totally blew me away. Man, the brother said, man, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to my family. And I went, whoa. And he said, yeah, man. He said, because what happened was, he said, I got settled in. He said, plus, I was doing some things outside of my marriage down there. He said, I was doing some stuff in the streets I ain't need to be doing. He said, man, it all got washed away. We thought our life would never be the same. But he said, man, my life ain't need to be the same. He said, man, now we live up here in Texas. We got a house, don't know nobody. He said, I ain't got nobody I know to get into trouble with. He said, man, I done rediscovered my wife, how beautiful she really is, how much my family really was counting on me. And he said, man, it straightened me up, man. He said, so I got to tell you, Steve, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, that's not always the case, but it's how you look at a situation. But just don't be anxious for anything, because God got a fix for you if you just let Him work. So just stay on course. Stay focused. Don't lose faith. Don't be anxious, man. Just stay in the wheel. Let God work with you. He got some great stuff in store for you.
What is it like to give up everything for a life completely devoted to God? I'm Erica Lance, and I'm a journalist and the host of the new podcast, The Turning, The Sisters Who Left. I've spent over a year researching Mother Teresa's Catholic order, the Missionaries of Charity. I've spoken with former sisters who worked closely with Mother Teresa. They talk about her bold vision and devotion to charity and prayer. But some of them found that life inside this fiercely private religious order was not what they'd imagined.
The order was wired that you had very little time to think.
You're only getting input from one source. You're isolated from everyone else. That's what I mean by brainwashing.
You could not have a friend. This was specifically prohibited. If you got too close to somebody, it was really, you were playing with fire.
If you make a lifelong vow, what does it mean to break it? Listen to The Turning, The Sisters Who Left on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Didn't catch the latest Roland Martin Unfiltered podcast? Here's what you missed.
The Republicans are going to call you socialist regardless. Look at what's happening right now with Warnock in Atlanta. Oh my God, scary Warnock.
It's real, it's raw, it's Roland Martin Unfiltered.
There always are going to brand Democrats as radical, left, socialist.
Download the Roland Martin Unfiltered podcast on the iHeartRadio app and listen to Roland Martin's daily commentary on the Black Information Network.